Hello everybody, welcome back to G for G, Games for Gamers. I'm your host, Napalm Dawn. Today's background music is brought to you by Space Ambient Relax Music. It's just really kind of sounds more than it is actual music. And today we're going to talk about the Onibreaker. This has been on sale a few times, and people still have questions about it, whether or not they should buy it, what is it good for, what buffs it, what does it buff, what are the interactions with this thing. And it's been on sale a few times, and honestly, we could kind of stop using the Onibreaker on sale and get some stuff that hasn't been up in like forever. How about the X-Ray Exploiter gadget? That was one of the first items ever in the game. I have this item. I have it because I participated in the beta when I saw the game on X-Play, which was a show on a network called G4. The producer was talking about the game. Pretty sure it was Justin who was out there on X-Play. He was being interviewed about it, and there was a code that you could get to get this gadget. I actually ran into somebody in PvP today who had it equipped, and I was quite shocked. I'm the only person I know of that has this thing. But we also have like the Magia Triggerman. My friend JW in the Marvel Avengers Alliance line chat has been kicking and screaming for us to get this thing forever, and we have a Magia related Spec Ops going right now. They could have done well to put a sale up for that item. I think people would scarf it up. The Onibreaker, it's complicated. It's less complicated than it was when it first came out in 2014. It's now gotten a lot better, and it synergizes with things a lot better. So you'll see here my agent is running one of the empowered squared trenches. This was a trench that was on sale or tied to a gold sale a while back. There is a version of this kind of suit out there for every class type except for generalist. It has no benefits other than having 2 ISO slots. Right now, I am running it with the Mystical E ISO and the Resonant E ISO. So this says magic causes a heal as long as it's not a quick action. This says anything and everything becomes magic. Again, not to quote the police, every little thing she does is magic. Except it's a he. So the Onibreaker is actually what's called a kanabo, or a tetsugo. It is basically a clubbing staff that has metal or iron rivets that are used to increase the weight of it, increase the force, and it is designed to crush armor, bones, and the legs of horses. Now, Oni is a reference to the Japanese word for demons. If you look into a lot of Japanese mythology or games set in ancient Japanese times with a bit of a mystical bent to it, you will encounter Oni. It's their demons. So the Onibreaker is basically a kanabo that is designed to break the will of demons. So in the function of this game, it is a kind of an unwieldy item, much like it is in real life. Only the strongest and most agile samurai were ever using the Onibreaker. But in this game, it's a little unwieldy due to the fact that it will always activate class benefits on the other side unless you're protecting against it, because it is an AoE weapon. It is also a melee weapon, so the elite ISO will trigger off of this. It will drain. So that's the negative. The positive is that it got really, really buffed up when the presence of the Lantern of Doom hit the floor, basically. So as you can see, I am not currently suffering from my buff of Exalted. Exalted is a buff that this weapon gives you. If you are at 100% hit points, you gain Exalted, which means you are immune to attrition debuffs. Attrition and dots. Your poisons, your chilled, your fire, perhaps even your soul fire, and death frost and everything. Basically things that start eating away at your hit points. Exalted makes you immune to them, and it will continue to make you immune to them until you are less than 100% hit points. So that is the area where I would have previously given the Onibreaker about a 6 or a 7. It became very, very unwieldy to try to maintain that buff. It's very, very tough to do. But now, things are a lot better. And that is, you have the presence of some really good tanks who can take the hits for the agent to keep the buff going. And we also now have the Lantern of Doom, which really helps maintain that high level buff. So the Lantern of Doom also gains some benefit from the Onibreaker. Where that comes into play is that if you have Unholy or Sacred on your agent, all items from the Onibreaker become all items on the Lantern of Doom become quick actions thanks to this buff called Sacred. So if you notice, here are my agent's buffs. I have Exalted and I have the Warning Essence. So I'm immune to all debuffs, but I'm also immune to the attrition and dot effects. That is because I am at nearly 100% of my hit points. This is easy to maintain with things like Alluring Light in round 2. Also, the biometric ID cards, the signpost. You can further reduce the damage of dots so that if you're below 100, your dots don't take you too far down. With the signpost, the shepherd's staff, I will say this, the signpost is broken right now. It literally does nothing. It doesn't drain, it doesn't heal. You use it, you get the animation, and nothing happens. So keep that in mind. Don't use the signpost right now. So the Onibreaker jumps up to about an 8 or a 9 on the scale for me now because of how well it works with the Lantern of Doom. You'll notice that I have now dipped below 100% of my health. You can see the little gap over there. So now I am exposed to Frozen. Well, actually, he hasn't really put any dot effects on me. But you'll notice Sacred is there, but Exalted is not. And if you look at Unholy Swiftness, which is the Lantern of Doom, it says that if I have Sacred or Unholy Power, the Lantern of Doom gets hastened. In other words, quick action. So that's where this weapon jumps up highly over here. It can protect against dot effects, and it also helps you get quick actions out of the Lantern of Doom without running snappy tactical. So now your bruisers, your blasters, your infiltrators, all of those guys can kind of have the benefit of snappy tactical without running that suit. So now you'll notice Exalted did not kick in. I have to start a fresh round at 100% hit points. So I did not kick in the Exalted. And that's another thing as to where the Onibreaker becomes tough to use. You have to start a fresh round with the 100%. You can't suddenly reach 100% and then have the buff automatically kick in. If Ymir had just hit null there twice, you would have seen it kick back in. So is this weapon worth a purchase? I would say conditionally, yes. Here are the things that make the Onibreaker get very, very high value for you. Do you have other heroes that can tank, especially AoE? Groot, Wonder Man, all those guys. No. Do you have people that can protect your agent so that you can sit in that nearly 100% hit point status for long periods of time? Do you have gear that will heal you? Things like the biometric ID card, the Lantern of Doom, the weather control device, the light fantastic off of the cube, any of the heal injectors, Terrazing boost from Doctor Strange, the heal from Omega Sentinel, the heals from the shields of Rescue. Do you have heavy shielding characters that can just stop the damage outright, like Magneto, like Invisible Woman with air pressure? If you meet those kind of conditions, I would say yes, the weapon is worth it. If you are concerned about the fact that it is AoE and it will trigger class bonuses, if you are concerned about the fact that it is melee in the face of the elite ISO that exists, which will cause a drain, then perhaps this isn't the weapon for you. If you have the Lantern of Doom, I would say, yeah, get the Onibreaker if you currently don't have it. It will give you a lot of flexibility for the Lantern that you previously might not have. Plus, it allows this to become a quick action without running snappy tactical. The other thing you can do is if you have these empowered square trenches, you can always do the resonant and mystical combination over here. You'll constantly be healing yourself and topping yourself off, so it might be easy to maintain that high level of hit points. Do you have survival training, like from the Guardian Insignia or from Falcon? Those things will also help you out, as again, it makes it easier to maintain high levels of hit points. So there it is, guys. I hope I answered the questions of whether or not Onibreaker is a purchase. To sum it up, if you have tanking heroes other than your agent, yes. If you have ways of healing or restoring health over time, like Terrazing Boost, yes. If you have the Lantern of Doom, yes. If you're really, really tired of the Elite ISO and you hate activating class bonuses, then no. You wouldn't want to run the item. But I will say that with some slight buffs on the agent, it does hit very well. And since it is an AoE weapon, it can put out a decent amount of damage. So, I hope I answered the question for you guys. And I hope I made it easier for you to make a decision while this weapon is still available in the store. So, take care, everybody. And in case you don't see any videos between now and Christmas, have a Merry Christmas.